Welcome back, everyone. It does not stop. It seriously doesn't. And one of the bigger surprises today, because we knew we'd be doing a video today, realistically, about the Activision story. Things were bound to happen. What we did not expect was Jim Ryan of Sony deciding it's time to slip the dagger in. I mean, slipping the dagger in is one way to put it. Another one is voicing concerns as a partner company. So we have a lot to get into today. Right. Let's get started. We've got the attempt to rally the staff, to rally the troops. Of course, here's Jen O'Neill, no longer there. Mike Ybarra, known for being on Twitter, running Mythic Plus keys, and also being the other co-leader of Blizzard. An interesting situation where maybe he hadn't done as much to win over the staff at the company, but certainly a lot of players, I think, given some recent issues with a few of the Blizzard games, they were just happy to see somebody, very visible in the company actually playing the game. But of course, that's a side thing. There's a lot more important things that he's doing as a part of his job, and those are the things that that we do have to talk about. Of course, this is also in an environment where, and you always, whenever people are bringing up a guilt by association thing, like, there's kind of alarm bells there. But a lot of people have also called into question, like, oh, hey there, you knew Ben Kilgore, and we all know why he left the company. Well, what does that mean? That's something I have seen being brought up quite a bit as well online surrounding Ybarra. Now, of course, it's that thing. Kilgore could have just been Kilgore to Ybarra. And this is one of the things that many people do experience where, to them, people are reasonable. And then you find out they've done all of these things, alongside. So there's just been a few more kind of things floating around. Of course, today was one of the larger tests of Ybarra's leadership, though. He's left in a situation of having to respond to his people, about yesterday's news. So we've got a lot of updates to basically go into. Now, this is all, of course, follow-up to yesterday's story. Bloomberg actually published a new article examining Activision-Blizzard's attempt to basically manage this whole situation. It has not been going well. Certainly, if you've been following some WoW developers on Twitter, you'll know that it's not going down super well. So Activision-Blizzard held a series of video calls across their three primary business areas where the leading executives fielded questions and handled some of the talking points. The various managers said that Kotick would be working to regain trust throughout the company and that their president, Rob Kostich, told staff that Kotick will not be resigning. So the Bobby remains. Now, of course, today we're talking about Mike Ybarra, the head currently of Blizzard. Leader because the other co-leader went. So he told the staff that he understood their frustrations and apologized for not being more active as a leader. Now, the issue here, I think a lot of people were expecting a bit of dialogue, a bit of discussion. It appeared that Ybarra was doing a pre-recorded remark. So not exactly what a bunch of staff really wanted. And then allegedly, this comes from Alison Steele, a member of the World of Warcraft development team, and a few others who are tweeting, just saying that Ybarra has yet to properly meet with staff and do anything notable as leader. While some other staff were upset that he was gaining favor amongst players for playing WoW and tweeting about it during work hours. So I think for a bunch of these people at Blizzard, you can imagine what it would be like for you. Of course, being consumer-facing is very important for a leader of a company like Blizzard. It's something that Blizzard generally were a bit weaker at. At least if you're a StarCraft fan, you would have Mike Morhaime tweeting about StarCraft. But that's something that WoW players have really craved for a long time. So for a lot of people, it was really great to see Ybarra tweet about that. But of course, we always would have expected that it was being combined with lots of excellent work being done in his capacity as co-leader. And there certainly seems to be members of staff. Cannot say that these people speak for everyone. Because, of course, what is going to lead to somebody making a tweet, right? And certainly in the current environment, if somebody would want to tweet to defend Ybarra, they probably know they'd be dogpiled. So take it with a grain of salt. But still, we do have reports from people in Blizzard saying that they're not the most pleased with what his leadership has been like, sort of on the more on-the-ground level. People saying that, the reaching out to developers, the actual talking with people hasn't really happened. So I wonder, they had to set up, was it called Ask Jay or something? Yeah. Where people could have a direct line to J. Allen Brack. Like, did that exist for Ybarra? Was it continued? I think these are the sorts of questions that we all like to learn a lot more about before we can draw major conclusions here. But the sounds we're hearing are not really confidence-inspiring.
Yeah, it feels like Ibarra is going to be on the back foot after, like, Jen was the one that all of the staff kind of rallied behind, went, oh, this is great to see Jen. Obviously, Mike, we've known Mike, he's been in Battle.net for a little bit of time, so fair enough, but it's just that idea of, he's almost left like he's the one that employees didn't want to end up stuck with if they had a choice, but it ultimately kind of ended up that way, which is, nothing about his capability, more just the situation surrounding it all. Obviously, people are going to be a little bit unhappy, and he's got a very, very difficult job to do now. So I hope they, like, a little bit of activity from him can turn this around, but it certainly doesn't look like Blizzard employees will be happy anytime soon.
Yeah. Now, if we look at Alison's tweet. Unfortunately, it is a quote tweet of somebody who's blocked me, and usually when it comes to World of Warcraft developers, it's like a 50-50 block rate. Unfortunately,
I don't know if they've blocked you or they just went private.
Could have been private.
They're private because I can't say that.
Because if you can't see it, then they probably haven't blocked you.
Yeah, it's just private.
Yeah, I'm actually on the block list of quite a few WoW developers, unfortunately. I will say, it is not personal to any of you. It is purely based on the product, and I seriously do wish you all the most success and happiness that is possible.
Of course.
But going through Alison's tweets, because this is stuff that people want to get out, so we should discuss it. I'm left with more questions than answers. Is Mike Ybarra running on a Windows platform? I suppose he did come from Microsoft, so I'd say he probably is running Windows. How did they get the skin to look so lifelike? Is it a polymer of some kind? Was Google too expensive? Because their robot voice is more emotive than the one we have. Now, Alison does say, look, I'm kidding, but saying I have feelings like your neutral guy from Futurama isn't doing a lot of good for anyone. I'd say there's probably a large chance here, and I think this is really what we get to dive into. It's a bit like what we talked about yesterday regarding Bobby himself. Some people are not teleprompter trained.
Yeah.
They cannot speak into a teleprompter and talk naturally. You had your first bout at the teleprompter recently. Yep. I've been talking, using a teleprompter for years and years and years, so I've developed that skill. But I know what it's like to learn that skill. And often in these corporate videos where, the reason why it is done with the teleprompter is so that Ybarra sticks to the friggin' script. And of course, we recently heard via the reporting that Bobby Kotick pretty much signs off on on a great deal of the sort of the company-wide communications and those important things. So there's every chance here that Ybarra is reading from a script. Now, we have a bit more insight into how Jen O'Neill left the company, and yet you look at the final post that she made that was all inspiring. That was probably not written by her.
No.
Or at least it probably wasn't reflecting what she truly felt inside. So I think this is a situation where almost regardless of what Ybarra thinks, in a way, he's probably a bit of an owned man when it comes into this.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of goes into what we were talking about a little bit yesterday as well, of that's what happened. Activision moved in after Mike Morhaime left and took a little bit more direct control over things.
Yes.
So obviously now Mike's as close to an outsider as they're going to get, outside of hiring someone entirely fresh.
Yeah, and so look, I heard that from I won't say exactly who, but this was like 3 years ago, so it isn't, or 2 years ago maybe, it was in the past anyway. I was surprised how senior the person was who reached out to me, ex-Blizzard, and said, no, see all that shit about Acti moving in? The people who say, no, it's not that, it is that. And like, that was somebody I was talking to who would know, seriously would know. And to move on with Alison's tweet then, he's unaccustomed to being in charge of so many people and he's in an impossible position. Just worth knowing, Blizzard people are kind of acknowledging that this is it's kind of unwinnable in a way. I imagine that's because of his position in the corporate ladder and basically what he'll need to do. I feel for him. Don't blame him for not knowing what to do. I'm not saying he's part of the problem, but I have no faith he's part of the solution either, maybe someday. And that's the thing, whenever people end up doing pre-recorded teleprompter messaging, you just know where those words came from, you know the function they're serving, and it does not inspire confidence at the ground level. And that is basically the big loss of how they've chosen to deal with this internally, which is a disaster.
Yeah.
Is a disaster.
I mean, it kind of leans into what we were talking about again yesterday, but like, they're so cynical in how they do things. They seem to completely be unable to read the room because, it would be dangerous, of course, but what you do is you get Mike to sit down in front of the camera and give a couple of things off the top of his head from talking points, put a bit of heart into it, and then cut through the takes, see which one kind of is the least egregious or that Activision agree with most. And I feel like that would be a little bit closer to, feeling homely, but It's just they just continue to make these corporate cynical moves at the time where they should be doing the exact opposite and coming across as people instead.
Yeah, the way that you do that is you make it an open forum or something like that that lasts as long as it needs to.
Yep.
Because that's what's important. The thing that matters the most is taking care of your people, and they do not feel taken care of. Now, the meeting with King was also apparently particularly interesting. Staff were asking whether the surprise announcement that they'd be getting bonus vacation days over Thanksgiving was an attempt to curry favor ahead of the article. Daniel Allegri, COO, denied that was the reason. Also fielded a question about whether Activision's new zero-tolerance policy would apply to Kotick. The response is that there was no evidence of the allegations against Kotick, therefore the policy could not be applied to him, though he is still deeply and personally committed to doing the right things. The problem is, look, if he had a more, sort of a rumbly past like he maybe seems to have had, but then changed, and none of these things recently happened, then sure, we could believe that. But he seems to have been suppressing things, like with your man Bunting from Treyarch, and that's, I think, what really is a bit of a nail in the coffin, really, for that situation. Now, Allegri also commented on the reported pay gap between Mike Ybarra and Jen O'Neill. Presumably, he didn't only speak to King staff, but if these comments are all from the same video, then, the King staff don't really take prisoners, because they were questions. So he said that O'Neill was paid differently to Ybarra because of complications involving cash and equity. He emphasized that O'Neill and Ybarra were both offered the exact same compensation, but O'Neill had already told Blizzard employees that she wasn't offered compensation equal to Ybarra until she'd already resigned. So there is a bit there. I think as well, Jen will know exactly how she fits into this situation. I mean, anyone in her position who's smart, and she is, would know that. So she's going to know, like, well, hey, if I leave and people find out, you lot are fucked. Maybe this is all coming out because of things that we don't know.
Possibly.
That's what I have to think. If Jen has no faith, maybe you get arguments.
Yeah.
Maybe the other side don't conduct themselves well. Maybe it ends up not being an amicable situation. We will maybe not know for a long time. A bit like how the Zampella West drama happened, but we only learned about that after the fact for some things.
I think that would technically, because a lot of it was... Some of it was lawsuits, so they couldn't actually say because of legal stuff. But yeah, it wasn't until years after that they started to come out and say, oh yeah, this is the truth of what happened at the time. Like us learning that Bobby had I can't remember who it was, but one of the senior members of staff start and trying to hack their work PCs to investigate them. Probably should have mentioned that yesterday when we were talking about Bobby Kotick's behavior towards his employees. That would have been a fun one to add in.
Yeah, then there's another thing that we probably should have focused on a little bit more yesterday about Slack. So O'Neill reportedly had absolutely no time for Ybarra's Slack chat. So this is kind of interesting. Let's go through this from the article. When another employee expressed confusion as to why leadership would reject the request from Blizzard's two co-leads, Ybarra added additional context to his comments. Quote, Jen and I were both on existing contracts. I ran BNet, she ran Vicarious Visions, pay was different. The first time both Jen and I were offered a new contract, it was the same across both of us for the new co-leader of Blizzard roles, so our compensation was going to be the same. Now, however, O'Neill seemingly sought to clarify the situation further, adding details that Ybarra had not mentioned. In additional conversations viewed by IGN, O'Neill responded forcefully to Ybarra's comments, saying she didn't want to be involved, quote, in a debate on Slack, and she hadn't received an equivalent offer until she tendered her resignation. Now, does that mean that Ybarra was not entirely truthful or was not complete in the truth? Because anytime there's communications from a corporate person, there's a sort of thing, sometimes it's like, well, they legally have to be truthful, but do they have to say everything? Could they leave something out?
Yeah, I mean, a lie by omission is the correct way to lie, effectively. But it's interesting because I guess it depends on whether he knew she had tendered her resignation, which I imagine he would, because that's sort of, it would be important to him. So I guess that's the thing where if he left that out, then that shows a little bit more of what side of the fence he's sort of sitting on, which is, I think that's the major problem here.
Is he an owned man?
Seemingly that's what the vibe is, at least so far.
Either way, Blizzard staff are going to read this reporting. How is that going to make them feel?
Yep.
Now, going back to how not to win over your staff, Activision-Blizzard executives told staff the company would be banning alcohol in all of the offices. Staff were offered paid mental health days, which wasn't enough for many staff. Mikey Barr wrote an internal email to staff that, quote, if there's a silver lining to the last few months, it's that they've proven Blizzard is full of incredible employees who are making progress every day to improve our culture, our game communities, and ourselves. Our best years are ahead of us. Now, that's the sort of thing that is true, but could come across as being tone deaf if he's not really being seen by staff to be a part of the solution. And that's the thing. It's like the more of a heavyweight you are, the more easily your body weight can be used against you, so to speak, in a situation like this. So yeah, morale, totally in the shitter. The staff are still wanting Kotick to resign. C-suite are saying, no, he's not going to resign.
What's next like?
Object that cannot be stopped. Yep. Shield that cannot be moved or broken, whatever. That thing.
Yeah, an unstoppable force meets an immovable object.
Yeah,
that's
no
what we're
confidence.
dealing with here. Like,
Kotick must go.
Yep.
So, yeah. Now, that's what's going on at the staff level. Here is a story that, to be honest with you, has not been the most accurately conveyed in headlines.
No.
Especially because this is being done by, often in cases, games enthusiast press. You'll have seen many headlines saying shareholders call for Kotick's resignation. A bunch of people tweeted me saying, look at this, the shareholders are revolting. But that's not the most accurate way of putting it. So, of course, shareholders, that's going to involve, anyone with a trading app. It's also going to involve larger groups. One of them is SOC Investment Group. They're a activist investor, meaning that they don't just take a passive role. They want to be more active. And in the case of SOC, that does mean advocating for things that basically are just like, CEO to median wages being a bit more reasonable, better conditions for workers, that sort of thing. And they've criticized Bobby Kotick repeatedly for years, so it really is no surprise that they are calling for his resignation here. So yes, they have issued a letter to the board of directors demanding his resignation. Now, they're called SOC now. You will have heard in our previous videos from ages ago, they used to be called CTW. So look, that's just what they've been doing. Letter that basically says Bobby's got to go. Then on top of that, they also want Dieter and Brian to resign from the board. They're the two longest serving members of the board. Though, to be fair here, and credit to him, Jason Schreier did swoop in and say, hey, they own 0.6%. They've been criticizing Bobby for a long time, so they would do this anyway. And he's just pointing out that, don't blow this up out of proportion. But it is something that's happening. I think it's more than anything, it's a PR issue, and I think SOC pretty much know that. They're just doing this to tighten the screws on them. Next then, Activision-Blizzard doubled down on support for Kotick. Yes, so they have reaffirmed their confidence in Bobby's leadership. That said, shares fell another 2.5% on Wednesday. However, for many people, they're going to think, Overwatch 2, Diablo, Call of Duty still makes a lot of money. I'll just buy the stock at a discount. Because that's the harsh reality of how these assets end up working, I suppose. A lot of people will see this and they'll think, okay, is this short-term drama that will depress the stock price but won't change the fundamentals of the company, therefore meaning the stock can end up being undervalued by whatever fundamentals analysis they're going to do. I haven't looked at any of those analysis, so I couldn't friggin' tell you, but that's what it's like when these stocks go down. I mean, whenever Ubisoft had their big hublot after Ghost Recon Breakpoint. I mean, if you bought in there, you'd be happy.
Yeah, and it's not even like they've made a whole bunch of releases after that. They've had a couple successful ones. They still have all of those problems, but the stock price doesn't reflect that at the minute. But I think one thing to say about buying Activision Blizzard now, it's like, is there going to be a bigger dip in the future because they keep stepping in it? Like if you look at the amount of times they've fucked something up and their shares have dipped, there's probably buyers thinking, will this get worse before it gets better?
Yeah.
Just a thought, like.
Yeah, and it's the whole, good times just around the corner. When will Diablo and Overwatch come out? Who knows? How many more directors will they go through? So, yes, anyway, the doubling down and support for Kotick is certainly what they want to do if they want to keep Kotick around, but drawing a lot of criticism, People are getting a lot more activisty about finding, here are the members of the board. Contact them, put pressure on. People are taking this really seriously because it is a serious issue. Now, speaking of people taking it seriously, this we did not expect.
Not at all. I'm shocked, honestly.
Yeah, so, Sony have been interesting because when Cyberpunk was a big shit show, they were like, all right, well, you don't get to be on our store.
Yeah, no.
And now here we go. So PlayStation CEO Jim Ryan, of all people, has decided to hop in the ring. And it's worth people remembering here. Call of Duty has always been, at least recently anyway, it's been humongous in PlayStation.
Yeah.
Because I do believe for multiplats, because PlayStation was larger in the previous gen and is larger in this gen, PlayStation's like your console is driving the most COD sales.
Yeah, and also they've had a whole bunch of exclusivity agreements in the past.
Yeah.
I can't remember which game it was, but there was lots of here's the unique mode or the unique map or stuff like that.
Yeah, I remember that for Modern Warfare 2019 as an example. Yeah. So, yeah, he has said in an internal email to Sony staff outlining that he and his leadership were disheartened and frankly stunned by the Wall Street Journal's investigation into Activision-Blizzard. Ryan said that Activision have clearly, quote, not done enough to address a deep-seated culture of discrimination and harassment. Ryan also stated that Sony has reached out to Activision-Blizzard immediately following the article's publication. Quote, we do not believe their statements of response properly address the situation. So, not only do you have the staff of Activision Blizzard saying we're not satisfied with this statement? You have the CEO of PlayStation saying it. PlayStation, the place, like the console that Call of Duty does the best on. Call of Duty, like the pillar of Activision. That's major. That's major. And certainly if you think about the board and stuff, they're going to think, oh, bunch of staff. We can hire more QA testers because they don't really seem to respect or value those staff. But if they start, they're getting lip from the PlayStation man, well, now that's a business partner. That's not a staff. That's big.
That's a business partner who basically has the keys to a lot of your profit. And the same business partners who last year just took the keys and took them away from another important business partner. Yeah. So you would have to I think it's a very, very, it's almost impossible for them to turn around and go, no Call of Duty on PlayStation until you sort this shit out. But it is technically a possibility. And I think that's something the Activision, management should be starting to worry about a little bit.
Yeah, so he just then said that Sony's committed to ensuring their community of developers and gamers feel safe and respected and providing a secure workplace for everybody, and that any instances of harassment and abuse, they should be reported, and he promised that any report will be investigated.
Yep.
Fairness, I don't think we've certainly heard some crunch stories from Sony Studios, some mishandling stories, things like that. I don't think we have heard stories of these sorts of issues being pervasive.
I don't believe so.
Similar with EA, I suppose, as well. So really, there you go. Sony, angry. Staff, angry. Sections of the investor group, angry. Not looking good for Activision Blizzard. And certainly, the last thing that Blizzard needs is a loss in faith in Ybarra. And at least some staff are saying that they haven't felt particularly great that he would be a part of change, and it seems like whatever has happened very recently hasn't really allayed their fears. So I think the most important thing now that can be done is for, Ybarra to probably stop the teleprompter things, to start the honest communication. He had been decently well liked by players. He now really needs to, the first thing you should focus on is staff, really. So that's what needs to happen, and we'll just have to wait and see. Really, I think for so many of the staff, it's got it gone or nothing.
That's what I think is the interesting. That's why this is unstoppable force, immovable object. Something has to give, and is it going to be Bobby Kotick and the board, or is it going to be the staff? It's the point where why hang around outside of needing to for your livelihood?
Can the board vote Bobby out? Because currently they're standing with him, but can they? I don't know what their structure's like. I don't really know how the voting would work there, but can they? I wonder. It's also funny when you look at the board. Lots of seasoned gamers in there.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Oh dear. Yeah. So look, that's the situation, everybody. Not particularly great. I imagine we'll be back here pretty damn soon with something else having gone on. So, look, we'll see you next time. That's it for us. You can check out the channel for other videos, and have a great day. We'll see you next time.